Hi, I'm Michael Makovsky. I'm the president and CEO of JINSA. I'm here on our weekly episode of Snapshot with as usual, with my colleague John Hanna, the Charles and Randi Wax, senior fellow here at JINSA. John, as always, it's great to talk to you.
Hey, Mike, great to be with you.
Okay,
what are we going to talk about this week?
And we're even in the same office, which is so that's for first time in a while. All right, let's talk about continue like what we did in last episode, where we try to talk about things that are important, but a little less in the news. So let's talk about Lebanon and Syria, because there have been some interesting developments in this past week. So John, let's start with Lebanon. Maybe you could just tell us what you think is going on that's important.
Yeah, well, I mean, the place that you have to start with almost everything that's happening in the region, or at least in the Levant these days, Mike, is with the fact that over the last year we've had this incredible Israeli military offensive against the enemies of Israel, enemies of the United States, particularly Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, transform the regional balance of power, and we're beginning to see the reverberations of that, certainly in the Lebanese theater and to some extent in the Syrian theater as well. With respect to Lebanon first, under some important U.S. diplomatic pressure from Tom Barak and others, the Lebanese government within the last couple of weeks finally took a very important decision, an official decision, to order the Lebanese army to develop a plan to disarm Hezbollah. That's the first time ever in the history of Hezbollah that the Lebanese government has made such a decision. At any point in time in the past, before Israel really smashed Hezbollah last September, it probably would have led to major violence in the street by Hezbollah against the government. The government would have been paralyzed. There could have been ministers killed. Yet so far, there's been very little, a lot of loud noise from Hezbollah, but no real action. So that plan is supposed to be developed, I think, within the next few weeks. So we'll see what happens. But it's a very unprecedented and important sign, I think, of the Lebanese government really starting to take some steps to reestablish its sovereignty and to downgrade Hezbollah. And I would say there have been a couple of other important signs. One, the new Iranian head of the National Security Council in Iran, Ali Larijani, who used to be the foreign minister, went to Lebanon, and he got a very icy reception in which both the new president, Aoun, and the prime minister in Lebanon told him directly to his face, we got to reclaim our sovereignty. There can only be one army in the state that controls all the weapons, and we can't any longer bear any foreign meddling in our affairs. So, again, unheard of. You can't imagine it. That's one thing. And then in recent days, we're hearing that in addition to what they're going to do with Hezbollah, the Lebanese government is taking some initial steps to disarm Palestinian groups in the refugee camps that have been holding weapons for decades as well. So all of these, we're still not out of the woods, long way to go. Important that the U.S. stays engaged, as it seems to be, but some very important green shoots here that we haven't seen before that I think are quite encouraging and need to be nurtured and protected.
John, I guess two things I've just added that just to emphasize how weak Hezbollah has become based on what Israel did to them almost a year ago. In fact, you could argue it started in late July with the missile that killed those Druze children in the playground area, and I think a soccer field in Israel. Then 2 days later, killed Shukr, I think the chief of staff of Hezbollah. I mean, I always look at that as kind of like the beginning of that war there. I mean, although, of course, you had Hezbollah started a war of attrition on October 8th of 2023. But let me ask you, I guess, but when in the 12-day war in June, Hezbollah did not fire one rocket. Every Israeli scenario, everything that we looked at, we put out a report last year about what a war would look like. Everything that we've been talking about was always going to be, this was going to be a massive war. If Israel attacked Iran nuclear facilities, you get tens of thousands of rockets and missiles fired at them. You know, you could have Israelis in bunkers for a month in Tel Aviv and Haifa and so on. And yet, because of what Israel did to them last fall, not one missile, not one rocket from Lebanon. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's extraordinary. I agree. Just a complete transformation of the strategic landscape in favor of Israel and the United States.
And one last thing on this. Would you say, and I know you were in government this time, you were the National Security Advisor to Vice President Cheney, but would you argue that, you know, no one ever made, I think, a lot of money betting on the resurrection of an independent Lebanon since maybe the 1970s. But the last time maybe there was this kind of opportunity and hope was around 2004 or 2005. It was about 20 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the time, obviously, after the assassination of Prime Minister Hariri by some combination of this Assad regime and Hezbollah and the Iranians. There was a real effort, us and the French, to work together with the United Nations, evicted the Syrian troops, and thought we had a real chance to try and sideline Hezbollah. But of course, then we had the 2006 war, in which, even though Hezbollah was badly mauled by the Israeli army, came out of it with survived, and obviously came out of it with some additional momentum. And you know, the last, whatever it is, 15 years saw us take our eye off the ball and allow Hezbollah to build up that massive inventory that was only taken care of just last September with the amazing offensive by the IDF to degrade Hezbollah that you talked about.
Yeah, and I wrote about it in Tablet.
Right, I remember. Great article.
Ago that this was Israel's biggest strategic mistake, was allowing that. But in the end, they did a phenomenal job. One last thing on this before we return to Syria is, you refer to the French back 20 years ago. We see Macron, I think we could all agree that he's been a counterproductive force right now, that he wants to recognize a Palestinian state. You know, and it would be a reward for Hamas. Is undercut the talks, as Marco Rubio, our National Security Advisor, Secretary of State, has said, it's undermined the talks with Hamas, emboldened them, so made it harder to get the hostages out. But would you say 20 years ago, he was in president then? So that there you said we were working. Are the French playing any role now on Lebanon? And given that they have a history there, and if so, what sort of, would you say it's constructive or counterproductive now?
Yeah, listen, they've got the historic relationship with the Lebanese state. It remains quite strong. I think France, after the United States, probably in terms of foreign governments, has the greatest influence on the Lebanese government. But frankly, the French, they've been major supporters of this UNIFIL mission in Lebanon that is really, at least until now, has been a tragic failure for just decades. And the French have continued to back it and support it. They've been generally very weak on the question of Hezbollah and getting the Lebanese government to confront Hezbollah, other again than that brief period after the assassination of Hariri, who our counterpart then was President Chirac, who was no friend of the United States and was really a problem in our side most of the time, particularly during the Iraq War and afterwards. But once his friend, his close personal friend, who knows what the financial relationship was between them, once Hariri got killed, Chirac took it personally and became, for that short period of time, a pretty good partner for us. One can only hope that Macron will do the same, but it has to be said, the French are pushing hard for the extension of UNIFIL's mandate at the end of August. And, you know, that's something that a lot of people feel has long ago run its expiration date, and we ought to get rid of it. It costs too much. It doesn't make any significant impact, but it does at the moment. If you're a betting person, the French have introduced the resolution. My guess is that the U.S. may go along with it at least for another year to see UNIFIL in place and trying to pressure it to do more to assist the Lebanese government in whatever plan they undertake to go after Hezbollah.
And I'll just alert the audience to look at our website. We've written a number of things about Lebanon this year by staff and by two visiting IDF fellows, both who have a lot of experience in Lebanon and played a role in, two generals that had a role militarily in Lebanon recently and years ago. So one of which is Effie Defrin, their current IDF spokesperson. So I encourage everyone to look at our website about how our writing on this and possible solutions. All right, well, just quickly, I guess we spend a lot of time on Lebanon, so we'll just mention briefly Syria. There were reports this week of talks this week in Paris between the Syrian foreign minister and Ron Dermer, the Minister of Strategic Affairs, and probably most well known for him being a distinguished fellow here at JINSA. But I think I thought it was interesting was we talked about there have been reports between the head of IDF operations, or then the head of IDF operations, General Basu, and the Syrians, but to have it with Dermer, who's closest, he's not the foreign minister, but he handles a lot of the most sensitive stuff. Dermer, Netanyahu's really closest advisor, and obviously he handles the Iran account, he handles the U.S. account, but now he got roped into this, and it seems to me that maybe elevates, the possibilities that there might be some progress here between Israel and Syria.
But I mean, this is you almost have to pinch yourself, Mike. We've got a bunch of former jihadis in control of the government in Syria. They've been around 8 or 9 months, whatever it is, and suddenly you have direct Israel-Syria talks for the first time in a generation. This is the second meeting between Dermer and the foreign minister of Syria in Paris under U.S. auspices, and the second since that massacre of the Druze in July, in which Israel, in order to get Syrian forces to pull back out of the Druze areas of southwestern Syria, Israel had to eventually bomb in Damascus around the defense ministry, as well as the presidential palace. And yet now that seems to have accelerated this need for talks to figure out a way to work out the relationship, to stabilize things, to get Israel the kinds of security assurances it needs along its border on the Golan, maybe to work out a humanitarian corridor that would connect Israel to providing help to the Druze. So again, we don't know exactly what's happening. There are some reports today that there could be some kind of security agreement reached by the end of September. That's being reported out of Israel. We'll just have to wait and see. And as we saw with that massacre in the Druze areas in July, which had been preceded by a lot of talk that we were getting close to an Israeli-Syria peace agreement, I think that was over-realistic, but then everything got short-circuited by the massacre in Suwaida. These things can go sideways very, very quickly. So we'll just have to keenly watch and hope that this positive progress continues, and that Israel-Syria relationship might be one of those things that we see come out of this amazing transformation in the regional balance of power that Israel achieved, that we lead to some real progress between these two parties that remain very much in a state of war. It's really a new day, and important that the U.S. is engaged trying to facilitate and help this along. And we'll just have to see where it goes. But it's pretty unprecedented and amazing when you think about everything that's happened.
Yeah, just a couple quick points on this, and then I think we'll conclude. Is that I think that obviously everyone knows about Israel, but it connects to what we just talked about Lebanon, that they decimated Hezbollah, which was a key force propping up the Assad regime. But it shouldn't be forgotten that as soon as Assad fled in December of last year, the Israelis immediately, and I think my understanding is that at least I've heard this from senior IDF generals, that they were the one who took the lead on this. The cabinet approved it. They then took out I don't know what percentage, is it 80%, 90% or something of the weapons caches that were in Syria. And it was a heavily armed country under Assad. And they've made it clear they have bombed they have done certain things even since to signal the Turks that they will not allow the Turks pass a certain line. They don't want to have any air defense issues with the Turks also that could interfere with their freedom of air, especially given that was before they attacked Iran nuclear facilities, but they might have to do that again. So, and I think with the Israelis, so they did that, and I think their support of the Druze, which we've talked about before, they've shown they have even more leverage with this regime. In addition, of course, that the U.S. is sensitive to anything that they'll do to help out the Syrian regime, that the Syrian regime needs to work something out with the Israelis. And of course, the Israelis control certain areas in southern Syria. So the Israelis have a lot of leverage here. So we'll see what comes out, but it's something that we'll have to talk about in the future. John, it's great to talk to you as always. We're recording on Friday around noontime on August 22nd. I wish you and everybody joining us a good weekend.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks for listening.